Hello everybody, welcome back to RP-1. Just a short episode today because we are actually in the transition stage between the sounding rocket era and the heavy satellites. As you see up top, we are building our launch pad for the heavy satellites and that will be completed soon. However, we are going to have to wait on launching our first satellite as we still have the final contract of our Suborbital Research Program, and we don't have a lot of science here, so we are quickly locking ourselves into a bad position. Starting the 18th of August on 1955, the very first satellite orbited in October of 1957, so if we want to keep up with that or beat it, we are going to need to work a little bit harder. As you see, we're not even going to get 1956-57 orbital rocketry until 1958. So that is something we need to do. We are going to launch two rockets today, both of them being the Advanced Biological Experiment, and we'll just take a quick look at that real fast before we get into the actual missions. So this is the bumper rocket 1A Advanced Biological Experiment, same as you saw before, but it is actually now missing those solid rocket boosters on top, because after doing some testing I realized that I can actually switch the sample capsule into the top avionics, so that way if our poor little animal does indeed burn up upon reentry, we can at least gain a science from it. And then so by getting rid of the solid rocket boosters, it allows me to weigh a little bit less when we come back through the atmosphere, which will slow us down a little bit farther. So in some testing that I did, I found out that I could indeed get away with this design here. So we are going to unlock it and put it in. We needed to unlock a lighter tank. As you notice, it is now silver instead of the green that we painted it, and that's because it is using isogrid tanks, which we most recently unlocked. But as we open up the heavy satellites 1 kilogram thing, we realize that it does need 1956-1957 orbital rocketry in order to work. I was under the impression that it was just basic rocketry, but we are going to need to push straight through basic rocketry in order to go and use this. I thought maybe I just tuned my engines a little high to a different configuration, but as I look here, it's the basic is 1956-57. Just to use the RD-107 and the 108, which is our favorite, we're gonna have to unlock that. I don't think I can actually make this satellite any sooner with any lesser engines, so unfortunately we are gonna have to wait for that research to be done, and we can't even scoot it up because basic rocketry needs to be done first. But what we can do is hire some more scientists, more researchers on here to hopefully bring that to a sooner date. So we are going to just click on a bunch of employees there, but now we are actually in the negative, losing 69.2 funds per day and a total of negative 30,000 per year. That's not good. We can afford it, but I feel like we should just keep ourselves in the positive just to make sure that we don't force ourselves into a bad position. I am going to just bridge the gap to hire a few more people, but now we see that it is indeed going to be made in 1957, which is a much better timeline. So we have our bumper rocket ready to be launched on the 20th of November 1956. We are going to attempt to finish up the Advanced Biological Experiment contract. We have to have 200 units of sounding payload, reach an altitude of 140 kilometers. We don't need to go downrange on this one. I did forget that during this entire day's recording, so on both launches I do push myself downrange, but we didn't necessarily need to do that. However, it may have, because of the fact that I tested it that way, I feel like it would be more important to follow the flight path of what we've already done. As you see here, I'm not actually using MechJib's Ascent Guidance. I'm not using Smart ASS. I was actually just tapping the D key to kind of point myself over, get our prograde knocked over enough, and then point towards it to help keep us level. And with that, our apoapsis actually crossed somewhere into the 200 or 300 kilometer range, so this is more than good enough to satisfy that aspect of the contract. The problem that we had in the last episode was we satisfied all aspects of the contract, but at 140 kilometers, we were not going the 2,200 meters per second surface speed that was necessary for the contract. But in all of my tests, I found out that by weighing a little less and just allowing myself to go a little higher, that I satisfied that with no problem at all. So as we see, the heat is building up, and unfortunately the little tiny monkey or dog that was in the capsule is no more. But we did switch the science into the avionics, so all that we could learn we can at least take home. So they did not die in vain. Unfortunately, there are many gravestones on the path to rocketry. So now we're passing through the clouds, gorgeous looking middle layer. We are in the process of working on trying to get Sol Beta installed. I've just been so busy these past week, 2 weeks, just trying to get everything done that I've kind of neglected the installation process of that. But I would love to get that working, and if it's stable enough, which I do believe that it is, if it's stable enough, we are going to integrate it into this current RP-1 series. For those who may not know, Sol Beta is a more upgraded, advanced type of RSS Reborn. It's just a different thing entirely, but it's currently in beta. But it does boast the fact that it is fully compatible with BlackRack's volumetric clouds and Firefly, so I'm very excited about that. But anyways, let's continue on in RSS Reborn, which is still absolutely gorgeous, with Advanced Biological Experiment launch number 2. We already finished the contract. We don't actually need to launch this, but since we did decide to err on the side of redundancy and put 2 rockets in the queue at the same time, might as well launch it. We can still gather important science from above the Kármán line with our little animal experiment, and if we can manage to get the science back home, then that will help us further our cause, because like I showed you in the beginning, we have very little science to our name right now, and all of the science that we've used, we've spent on important things. The engines are going to be a huge difference in our program, so we can't refund any of our research and try to get something better. So we are going to have to spend some time to gather some science, and so a secondary launch like this is absolutely great. So I'm going to bring up my windows here, just make it a little bit easier for myself when we go. We don't actually need to switch over the data until we hit the Kármán line again, because the Advanced Biological Experiment can't run when it's not in space, so we have no worries of losing any of the data. So we're just going to time warp our way forward back into the atmosphere, and once we hit it and it breaks our time warp, we can go ahead and transfer the data, and then all is well. Unfortunately, our little animal once again becomes a sacrifice in the name of science, as well as our sounding payload, which we actually didn't even need to bring with us because of the fact that this isn't a contracted flight. There's no need for any sounding payload. However, it may have prevented our parachutes from exploding at that matter. But then one also has to ask the question, would it have exploded the parachutes to begin with? Because without the sounding payload, it would have been a little bit lighter and had a little bit better time coming through the atmosphere. But those are questions for people smarter than I, because that is math a little too advanced for me. But anyways, we do have a safe descent speed here, so we do know that our capsule is going to touch down gently in the water, and we can recover the science that we needed. So I mentioned that it is a transition period between the 2 programs, hence why it is a shorter episode. In the next episode, we are going to be focusing solely on the Heavy Satellites program, because it is going to take the majority of our time and energy to do the test flights and the build process and get everything going. We may have to do some risky maneuvers with our money and our programs in order to really kind of min-max our ability, so that way hopefully we can beat the Sputnik. I'm putting the 2 points into the SRBs because we might as well learn that now because they will be beneficial later. But if we want to beat the Sputnik October 1957 orbiting, then we're going to need to put in the work. So now I am hiring my other leaders. I'm going to go with Valentin Galushko. He is the designer of the RD-107-108, and I strongly lean on that engine, so I feel like he is the perfect person to hire over on to that project. And then for the secondary leader, we are going to go with Jack Parsons. I was waiting until we got a science satellite up in the orbit to see what the final leader was, but I don't want to wait any longer, and we are actually going and using solid rockets more than I thought we would, so therefore I believe this will be most beneficial. So in the next episode, we are going to be working on the Heavy Satellites program. We are going to be attempting, we are going to be working on the first mission of 1 kilogram satellite, and then the next one is the 40 kilogram and then the 100 kilograms. So hopefully we can keep up with the space race, get the science necessary, and keep pushing our program forward. But anyways, that is where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more RP-1. If you did think about subscribing, drop me a like, let me know your thoughts, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.